Aloha, welcome to the G'day Sally show. I'm Sally Squires, entertaining the world. And tonight I'm reading stories from my book, Footsteps to Fairy Forest. Now you remember the little girl had found a map, and on the map there was all sorts of footsteps on the way to Fairy Forest. And she actually found the first footstep after a little bit of adventure, and guess what? A fairy appeared, and that was Arkanaja, that fairy of the air. So today she's going out to find the second footstep. So footstep 2 from my book, Footsteps to Fairy Forest. Thrilled that I had found the first footstep and met a fairy, I set off early the next morning to find footstep 2. I unfolded my map under one of the huge peppercorn trees in my grandma's backyard to check the direction of footstep 2. I knew how to get to footstep 1 from yesterday, and when I checked the map, it showed footstep 2 to the north-northeast of footstep 1. There were 3 rosy red dots on the ground marking where it was. I headed down the same path as I had yesterday, and when I got to footstep 1, I sat down on the same rock to check my map again. After checking my compass to make sure I was heading in a north-northeast direction, I got up to leave and set out. It wasn't long before I thought I could hear a buzzing noise. I looked around, but I couldn't see anything, so I kept walking, keeping an eye out for where the buzzing was coming from. As I walked, the buzzing noise got louder. I wondered what it could be, and then something got caught in my hair. The buzzing noise was coming from whatever it was that was caught in my hair. I put down my bucket and spade to try to get it, whatever it was, out of my hair. But just as I was about to, there was a whooshing noise by my head, and a snowy white owl swooped in. I was afraid it was going to peck me, but instead I felt it tug at my hair and the buzzing noise stopped. So I kept on walking, and it wasn't long before I heard the same buzzing noise again. To my surprise, the owl arrived again and caught whatever it was that was causing the buzzing. As I walked a little further, I could see what was causing the buzzing. It was bees. I could see more of them in front of me. So that was what the owl was doing. It was eating the bees to stop them from stinging me. I wondered if I should keep walking down the path towards more of the bees. And then the owl gave me a surprise. It landed right in front of me. It looked straight at me and began to flap its wings and swivel its head. Then it began to walk, not fly, off to the side of the path as if it wanted me to change direction away from the bees. So I started to walk off to the side too, and the owl flew a few feet in front of me and stopped again as if to check that I was following it. I kept following the owl, though I was worried that I would miss the path of the way to footstep 2. After I had followed it for some time, I noticed that there was no buzzing sound. So I thought that perhaps the owl had led me past the beehive safely. I stopped for a minute and took out my compass to see what direction I was facing, and much to my surprise, the compass showed me that I was now back on a north-northeast direction. The owl landed right in front of me and did a little dance as if to say goodbye, and then it flew off. So I called out, "Thanks, owl." I walked off and noticed lots of clouds in the sky. And then I thought I should check my map again because perhaps I was getting close to footstep 2. I knew I must keep a sharp eye out for the 3 red dots, so I kept my eyes on the ground as I walked. I hadn't gone far when I noticed a little trail of red berries along the ground in front of me. I followed the berries and suddenly they stopped. I bent down and moved away some of the dirt, and sure enough, there was another pebble with writing on it. It said footstep 2. I put the red berries and the pebble into my bucket. Suddenly I felt a breeze on my face and something caught my eye. I saw a ruby pink and purple flash just near me. I couldn't believe my eyes as I sat down on a rock to see what the ruby pink and purple flash was. You'll never believe it, but a ruby pink and purple fairy landed on my hand. She said she was Balletina and that she was the fairy of the dance. And then I fell asleep. So now we're going to have the story of Balletina, the fairy of the dance. Balletina, the fairy of the dance, slid down the silver spiderweb ladder from her fairy house in the mossy green nook at the top of a fairy-wort tree. She sat down on a trusty toadstool to put on her rich ruby pink dancing shoes. She had been working all night on a new dance, which she planned to teach to some of the squirrely squirrels who'd been asking her for dancing lessons for some time. Flump, clump noises came from above Balletina as the squirrels raced down the tree to the fairy glen where she was to teach them. Some slid down vines from the very top of the fairy wart tree, but others jumped from branch to branch. But whichever way they came down to the fairy dell, they made excited noises as they reached the mossy glen. The squirrels chatted to each other while Balletina showed them the steps, and several times she had to chide them for not focusing on their dance steps because they were so busy chatting. At the other side of the fairy dell, the fairy of song, Carolonda, could see that Balletina was having a hard time trying to teach the squabbling squirrels, so she flew up into one of the trees nearby and settled down on a creeper-covered branch. Then she began to sing such a sweet and soft melody that all the squirrels turned to see where the beautiful music was coming from. At last they settled down and began to practice their dance steps in earnest. After some time, the ears of one of the squirrels started to twitch, and she stopped her steps. Then the ears of the other squirrel started to twitch, and they too stopped their steps. "What's wrong?" asked Balletina. She realized that something was upsetting the squirrels. "He's coming," said Sandy Weaver, the oldest of the squirrels. "Oh," said the other squirrels, "you're right, we can hear him too." "Who's coming?" asked Balletina. And then she caught sight of Carolonda out of the corner of her eye, and she could see that Carolonda had stopped her sweet singing. From the top of her tree, Carolonda signaled to Balletina that a wildcat was creeping along in the undergrowth, and he was heading straight for the squirrels. "Gone," said Sandy Weaver, and all the squirrels scurried up their home tree and into their nests. Wildcat Wastrel Wally worked his wanton way through the undergrowth, trying to be as quiet as a wildcat could be. But he wasn't quiet enough to creep up on the dancing squirrels. Balletina flew straight towards Wildcat Wastrel Wally, as he crept quietly through the creepers. She landed on his left ear. Wildcat Wastrel Wally stopped. He could feel something on his ear, and he thought it might be a nasty nipping gnat, so he tried to dislodge it with his left paw. But Balletina lifted off his ear to avoid his paw, and then she settled down on his ear again. "It's no good, Wildcat Wastrel Wally. I am not leaving," she said. "I am going to sit here on your left ear until you agree to let the squirrels alone so that they can learn their dance steps." "But I'm not after the squirrels," said Wildcat Wastrel Wally. "Oh, I know. I have been seen chasing squirrels in the past, but that's not what I want today." Balletina Fairy didn't know whether to believe him or not. She knew that wildcats can be pretty tricky, and it's a good idea not to believe them unless you can check out what they say. "What if I don't believe you?" said Balletina. "I would want to make sure that the squirrels can practice their dance steps with me without you or any other wildcats bothering them." "It's true," said Wildcat Wastrel Wally. "I've been watching you teach the squirrels how to dance, and I want to learn too. Will you teach me the way you're teaching the squirrels?" Balletina still didn't know whether to believe Wildcat Wastrel Wally or not, so she thought she would say a fairy spell over Wally to find out if he really was telling the truth. She waved her magic wand over him. Her wand was made of rainbow-coloured satin and lace ribbons woven together. "Unicorn Universe Unusual. Make magic moment. Wildcat Wastrel Wally. Tell the truth today." And she sprinkled Wildcat Wastrel Wally with truth-telling fairy dust. Wildcat Wastrel Wally turned his head to see if he could see Balletina Fairy. "Well," she said, "what do you have to say for yourself?" Wildcat Wastrel Wally looked very sheepish, or should I say cattish. "Well," he said slowly. "Well," he said again. "Yes, I did come today to try and catch squirrels." "Aha," said Balletina, "I thought so. But then I saw how much fun they were having learning dance steps from you, and truly, I really do want to learn to dance." Balletina thought for a minute and a second. She flew down off Wildcat Wastrel Wally's left ear and landed on his nose. He nearly went cross-eyed trying to look at the fairy. "Tell you what I will do," said Balletina. "If you promise and cross your heart that you will not ever try to catch squirrels again, I will teach you how to dance." "Do you think you could make such a promise?" said the fairy of the dance. Wildcat Wastrel Wally sat down. He scratched his right ear. He would have to think about such a promise. Could he really make such a promise? Was learning to dance more important to him than chasing squirrels? He thought back to when he first saw the squirrels doing their dance steps, with their fluffy tails straight up in the air and floating about as they practiced their steps. It certainly did look like fun. Yes, thought Wildcat Wastrel Wally, I do so much want to learn how to dance. Yes, dear fairy, I do want to have fun learning to dance. He stood up and crossed his heart with both his front paws. I promise that I will not ever chase squirrels again if you will teach me how to dance. Once the squirrels heard that Balletina, the fairy of the dance, was going to teach Wildcat Wastrel Wally how to dance, and that he had promised never to chase squirrels again, they all cheered and cheered. And every time Balletina gave Wildcat Wastrel Wally a lesson, they all sat up high in the surrounding trees watching and clapping every time Wally learnt a new step. So that was footstep 2 in my book, Footsteps to Fairy Forest, and that was Balletina, the fairy of the dance. You know, Hawaii is a microcosm of the world, with people here from all over the world. And Noa Noa Hawaii is a microcosm of the traditional arts of the world, with beautiful patterns from many countries. They've been in business for more than 40 years with wonderful Hawaii-designed batik clothing. Their hand-dyed and handmade clothes have patterns that are based on traditional kapa and tapa designs from Hawaii, Polynesia, Micronesia, Indonesia, even New Zealand and Africa. So check out the wonderful items that Noa Noa has on their website, www.noanoahawaii.com. So I'll be back next week, so bye for now.